إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله، فإنه من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد، ومن يعص الله ورسوله فلا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. أما بعد، فأوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله تعالى، كما قال جل وعلا في كتابه المجيد: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. My brothers and sisters, after praising Allah the Exalted and abundant praise, we beseech Him to send His peace and blessings upon the final messenger Mohamed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his family and his companions and all those who follow in his footsteps until the day of judgment. Allahumma ameen. My brothers and sisters, today we reflect on a story that occurs during Sirah Nabawiyya, during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. And this is a Quranic story. It is an Islamic story. It is also a universal human story that tells us about the importance of the value of justice. And this story occurs in Al-Madinah al-Munawwarah after the Hijrah, after the migration of the Prophet ﷺ and the Muhajirin to Medina under persecution. And this story occurs in these years where there was a lot of difficulty in that life in Medina. There were periods of extreme hunger. There were periods, especially early on, of disease and hardship. And of course, there was the heartache and the financial hardship of having been expelled from their lands under duress. And it is in this context, this general context of the Medina, that the narrator of our story, Qatada ibn Nu'man, and his uncle Rifa'a, they have a wrong that is done to them. They had a shield of metal that was their property, and it was stolen illegitimately from their possessions. And to contextualize this, at this time, having shield and armor, especially in pre-modern times before standing armies, these were like cars are to us. It was that kind of value. It's a very expensive item, especially in a context where in Medina, at times from such hunger that people are wrapping stones around their stomachs from the extreme hunger. This was a huge financial loss and a wrong done to these people. And there were suspicions around more than one person. There were some suspicions around the house of Ubaydah, which was a people of the Ansar also, but from the other tribe. The Qatada was from the Aus tribe, and the Ubaydah family was from the Khazraj. And remember that the Aus and the Khazraj in Medina had just gotten out of a 40-year brutal civil war that had literally wiped out almost an entire generation of leaders, incredible penalties, incredible hardship, and that the Prophet ﷺ had just made peace between these warring factions as Muslims. But the Ubaydah family, they disputed this claim. And more than one person disputed it, although one of them, according to most narrations, a man named Tu'ma ibn Ubaydah, was the one accused of being a thief. There were multiple people that came and witnessed that the thief was in fact a man from the Jewish tribes named Zayd ibn Samin. And this man Zayd was also accused, so there's all these suspicions around multiple households in this huge claim. I want you to imagine for a moment the circumstances around which the Prophet ﷺ receives this news. Because our prophets are examples for how these high and lofty concepts, these great ideals, are implemented in real life, among the real concerns of people, around the hardships. So there's a lot of hardship surrounding this claim. One, that the accuser, Qatada and his uncle Rifa'a, are from the Aus and the accused are from the Khazraj clan. So immediately, this claim could stir up fitna and tension between these groups that just came out of a brutal war. In addition, remember that the Ansar were still new in their Islam, and that unlike the Muhajirin, whom some of them had been with the Prophet ﷺ up to 13 years, they were still new in Islam, so to take a stance for justice takes courage, because it might upset somebody. And of course, the entrance of this Jewish man also adds complications to the case. Because while he could be a victim, because he's an easy target, a lot of the Jewish tribes, not all, but some of the Jewish tribes of the Medina progressively, as we know from the Seerah, would harbor a lot of animosity and would even bear arms and commit treason and harbor a lot of animosity. So he's an easy target, but also potentially legitimately accused. This reminds us that sometimes standing for justice takes real courage. This reminds us that justice is easy as long as it's theoretical. Yes, I stand with what's right. Yeah, I do the right thing. Yeah, I'll stand up to a person that's doing wrong, until the person that's doing wrong might be a member of my family, might be my friend. Until standing for justice becomes the more difficult path than sweeping it under the rug. Until standing for justice takes true courage and sacrifice. And we must be realistic that many of our Muslim communities, and in fact much of our world, is struggling from a lack of true leadership. We have rulers, we have people sitting in the seats of power, but not leaders. People that will stand for what's right even when it's unpopular. People that will do what's right even if it takes sacrifice. So I want you to understand, before we hear the rest of the story, how a man lesser than the Prophet ﷺ could have found a million excuses to just brush over this claim. Ask the man, we have bigger problems now. You're going to have to let go of the shield. Ask the man, I don't want these families to flare up. But the Prophet ﷺ recognized that it wasn't his right to forego. It was the right of this family that had been done wrong. And only they could choose to forego it or pursue it. Our Prophet ﷺ demonstrated courage and leadership in standing for what was right. Our Prophet ﷺ, actually this story is from the evidences that he did not know ilmul ghaib. He did not know the knowledge of the unseen. And the knowledge of the unseen is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. By his permission, he might let one of his ibad, some of his prophets, to know a part of it, like our Prophet ﷺ received news of Al-Jannah, of hellfire by Allah's permission. But as for Al-Ghaib in general, it was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, not even the prophets did it. So our Prophet ﷺ, as he examined this evidence, he examines it as a human being. And he gathered some of the Sahaba to look at the facts and retrieve information. As I mentioned, there were suspicions swirling around both of these families. Some narrations indicate that the shield was stored with some food and flour, and that the trails of flour led to this neighborhood. Other narrations indicate that some of the members of the family were seen carrying the shield. But still the claims were disputed. The Jewish man insisting on his innocence, and the family of Ubaidah insisting that he is the true accused. And the family of Ubaidah asked the Prophet ﷺ to defend them with his tongue, with his words, because they felt that they had been defamed, that their family had been wronged. And our Prophet ﷺ may have felt inclination in his heart to do so, as the evidence, the material evidence, pointed to the guilt of Zayd ibn Samin, the Jewish man. And as some of the Sahaba went to investigate, when they came to his home to examine his claims, as they searched the home, they found the stolen shield. It was verified to be it, the stolen article. So the evidence seemed to point to the guilt of this man. And yet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed and sent Angel Jibreel with revelation in the Holy Quran about this very incident. Sent Angel Jibreel with the revelation of verses in Surah An-Nisa, the fourth surah of the Holy Quran, starting with verse 105. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ لِتَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِمَا أَرَاكَ اللَّهُ وَلَا تَكُنْ لِلْخَائِنِينَ خَصِيمًا وَاسْتَغْفِرِ اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Allah said, we have sent down the scripture to you, O Prophet, with the truth that you may judge between people with what Allah has shown you. And do not be an advocate for those who betray trust. And seek Allah's forgiveness, for verily Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. So what's happening in these ayat? What news did Jibreel come with? In fact, Jibreel came with the news that the Jewish man Zayd ibn Samim was innocent and a victim, and that this family, according to most narrations, Tu'ma, or some say Bushayr ibn Ubayr, was in fact the thief himself. And Allah Azza wa Jalla continues, وَلَا تُجَادِلْ عَنِ الَّذِينَ يَخْتَانُونَ أَنفُسَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ خَوَّانًا أَثِيمًا يَسْتَخْفُونَ مِنَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يَسْتَخْفُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ وهو معهم إذ يبيتون ما لا يرضى من القول وكان الله بما يعملون محيطا. Allah says, do not argue on behalf of those who betray their own souls. God does not love anyone given to treachery and sin. They try to hide themselves from people, but they cannot hide from Allah. And He is with them, and His knowledge is with them, as they plot at night, saying things that do not please Him. And He is fully aware of everything that they do. Allah Azza wa Jal, the knower of the hidden and the seen, knew that the thief, the true thief from the Ubayr family, knew he was guilty. So He entrusted the shield to his Jewish neighbor, or some narrations indicate that he actually intruded on his backyard, if you will, and hid it there that it would be found in the investigation. But the man did not stop at this. He gathered some members of his family, and he admitted his guilt to 4 members of his family. But he appealed to their hearts, talking about what would happen to their reputation, how they would look in front of people, what will happen to the family of Ubaydah. And he asked them to come to the Prophet ﷺ and argue for his innocence, to come in on this conspiracy to blame a vulnerable person who would be easy to hate because so many of his tribesmen were openly hostile to the Muslim community. Among these 4, one said, absolutely not. He would not lie to the Prophet ﷺ. He would not commit this treason. But he had knowledge of the guilt. So he had the ability to undo this whole conspiracy. So they asked him, then at least be quiet. Don't say anything. And he agreed to this. And then the 3 and the thief, they went and they sought to trick the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, falsely accusing an innocent man. Allah Azza wa Jal criticized the actions of these people although they were in power. Allah criticized them although they were Muslim. And through this great story, we learn an enduring value of Islam. That we do not stand with people that are like us, be they our family or friends, or fellow believers, or our business partners, or anyone we have an interest in doing wrong. That we help them, yes. We care for them, yes. But we help them by helping them get out of their oppression. Not being a material aid to it by lending our hand, lending our voice, or even daring to lend our silence. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. My brothers and sisters, reflecting on this great story, this Quranic story, this Islamic story, and indeed this universal human story of justice. The story of Ad-Dir' al-Masruqa, the story of the stolen shield, which Allah Azza wa Jal revealed ayat and verses about in Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter of the Holy Quran, starting with verse number 105. Allah Azza wa Jal, continuing in these ayat, shifts the focus of those that had done wrong from the petty worldly gain that they sought to get to where our focus should be, and that's the hereafter. Allah Azza wa Jal says, هَا أَنْتُمْ هَؤُلَاءِ جَادَلْتُمْ عَنْهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. He says, you believers, you have argued on their behalf in this world. In fact, for a short time, they succeeded in lying to the companions, in lying even to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But Allah Azza wa Jal continues, فَمَنْ يُجَادِلُ اللَّهَ عَنْهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَمَّنْ يَكُونُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَكِيلًا. So who is it that will argue on their behalf on the day of judgment? And whom is it that will protect them? For Allah Azza wa Jal is not their protector. But Allah Azza wa Jal, from His infinite grace and mercy, He opened the doors of tawbah. The tawbah would require that the financial right be returned, that the stolen goods be returned, that the wrongs of this life be undone. But there was still a sin. Even this great sin, Allah Azza wa Jal opened the doors of forgiveness. وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ سُوءًا أَوْ يَظْلِمْ نَفْسَهُ ثُمَّ يَسْتَغْفِرِ اللَّهَ يَجِدِ اللَّهَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Whoever does evil or wrongs his own soul, then seeks God's forgiveness, will find God most merciful, most forgiving. وَمَنْ يَكْسِبْ إِثْمًا فَإِنَّمَا يَكْسِبُهُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. And he who commits a sin does so against his own soul. And verily, God is most knowing, most wise. In a single page of the Quran, these people thought that they were doing wrong to another person. And Allah Azza wa Jal says 3 times that they were wronging their own selves, that they were oppressing their own selves, that they were aggressing in reality against their own selves. For what is the price of a stolen shield if you have to answer for it before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the price of a padded timesheet, or a miscalibrated scale, or a few extra dollars if you have to answer for every penny before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the price of selling haram and eating haram if you have to deal with the lack of barakah in this world and then answering for the sin on the day of judgment? What is the price of leverage in a case, in a business dispute, in a scheme between business partners, in a custody dispute, in a financial dispute, if you gain a petty price in this life, and you have to answer for all of that and everyone you wronged, and the wake of destruction left after dhulm, we have to answer for that on the day of judgment. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَنْ يَكْسِبْ خَطِيئَةً أَوْ إِثْمًا ثُمَّ يَرْمِ بِهِ بَرِيئًا فَقَدِ احْتَمَلَ بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. And anyone who commits an offense or a sin, then throws the blame on an innocent party, has burdened himself with deceit and a flagrant sin. My brothers and sisters, wallahi, these ayat are from the miracles of the Holy Quran. These ayat are from the greatness of Islamic justice and the justice of our deen that is unparalleled by any human justice and any human value. And these values from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these ayat, wallahi, they call us to be higher. How many of us have sat in the rooms of dispute, in the issues that drive us apart, and the professionals and the leaders and the counselors and the imams find themselves just wishing, where is that righteous uncle? Where is that God-fearing aunt? Where is that family member? Where is that close friend that can just wake up people, give them a good word to remind them about the evil that we're doing? Because so many times, stopping that injustice doesn't take an eloquent tongue or a minbar or a video camera. It takes a God-fearing, decent person to remind others to fear Allah truly, to remind others of the values of this story. The story I encourage you to share with your children, to go back and read and reflect Surah An-Nisa, chapter number 4, verse number 105. And indeed, a story that has been reflected by scholars and by people in history outside of Islam. The story of the Dir'a al-Masruqa, the story of the stolen shield. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those that stand for justice. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the courage and the strength and the thabat to always stand for what's right. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us against the sin of transgression and wrongdoing, to protect our children, to have mercy on our parents as they raised us when we were young. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal's favor and blessing upon our brothers and sisters and upon all people that are suffering from injustice, large and small, here and across the world. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم آمين آمين. Special announcement that the IR Election Committee reminds you to vote for your shura this Sunday, November 19th at the IR Library from 10 to 3 p.m. And also the IR cordially invites you and your family to a fundraising dinner on Saturday, December 9th at 6 p.m. The event will be held at the McKimmon Center. Babysitting will be provided at the Red Brick Building free of charge. Tickets are available online via the kiosks in the library and sold after Jumu'ah today in the lobby. Your continued support and donations are greatly appreciated. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر.